My wife secretly inheritance $500, $0 from her ex-boss, then leapt into a new relationship, only to sue me for half our house and savings. She swore she loved me, but I just found out she gambled away our future. I never thought I'd be the guy to find out my wife was cheating on me, let alone in such a brutal way. It all started with a gut feeling, you know. Something just felt off, like I was missing pieces of the puzzle. We'd been married for 5 years, and at first everything seemed perfect. Jessica was the kind of woman who dressed to impress, always had a sharp comeback, and could talk her way out of anything. But lately she'd been acting different, more distant, secretive with her phone, and sneaking around with her friends more often. I shrugged it off as work stress or maybe her trying to find herself again after a rough breakup, but deep down, I had this gnawing suspicion that something wasn't right. It all came crashing down one evening when I decided to check her phone out of habit. It was late, and I was just trying to see if she was texting someone. Stupid. I know, but I couldn't shake the feeling. That's when I saw it. A series of messages between her and some guy named Mark. They weren't just friendly chats. They were intimate, full of flirtation and talking about meeting up. My stomach dropped. I couldn't believe what I was reading. My wife, the woman who swore she loved me, was planning to meet this guy for sex. The messages were explicit, and there was even talk about her leaving me once she got her inheritance. She'd just come into a huge sum of money from her ex-boss, something she'd been hiding from me. I learned she'd inherited $500,000 from her previous boss, a wealthy businessman she worked for before quitting a few months ago. She'd been acting strange about money, acting like she was broke, but I found receipts showing she'd been gambling heavily, more than just poker nights with friends. It was clear she was planning a future for herself that didn't include me. Her lies, her secret life, everything I thought I knew about her was a facade. I was stunned, furious, and hurt all at once. How could she do this? To me, to our marriage, to everything we built. That night I didn't sleep. I sat on the couch, staring at the ceiling, trying to process what I'd just uncovered. I felt betrayed, not just because she was cheating, but because she'd lied about her money, her intentions, and her love. She lied about her fidelity, her honesty, everything. I kept asking myself how I missed all the signs, how I could have been so blind. It was like waking up from a nightmare, only to realize the nightmare was real and I was stuck in it. I knew I needed to confront her, but I also knew it wouldn't be simple. Jessica was the type who could spin any story, deny everything, and make me doubt myself. Still, I couldn't keep quiet anymore. I had to know the truth from her own mouth, and I had to decide what to do next. I didn't expect that this discovery would be the start of a I'd never wanted to ride. The next morning, I woke up feeling like I'd been hit by a truck. My mind was a whirlwind of anger, betrayal, and confusion. I knew I couldn't keep living in the dark, so I decided to confront Jessica that day. I made my way to her office, trying to keep my voice steady but knowing I was on the verge of losing it. When I saw her sitting at her desk, typing away on her computer, I felt a surge of rage and sadness all at once. I told her I needed to talk serious talk. She looked up, surprised, and asked what was wrong. I didn't hold back. I laid out everything I found, the messages, the gambling receipts, the inheritance she'd kept hidden from me. Her face twisted into a look of complete shock, then quickly turned into a mask of annoyance and defensiveness. "You're crazy," she snapped. "You've been spying on me. I don't know what you think you saw, but you're wrong. You're just paranoid like always." Her voice was sharp, almost bitchy. She tried to brush it off, saying I was overreacting, that I was insecure, that she loved me but was just tired of the constant accusations. She spun a story about work stress, about how she was just talking to Mark because he was a friend, and how I was making a mountain out of a molehill, but I wasn't buying it. Her excuses sounded hollow, rehearsed. I pressed her further. What about the inheritance money? Why had she lied about being broke? Why was she gambling away our savings? Her eyes flickered and she started to get defensive. She said she'd only been doing it to have fun, that I was overreacting, that she didn't mean for it to get out of control. But I could see through her lies. I knew she'd been planning to leave me once she got her hands on that money, and her so-called fun was just a cover-up for her reckless spending and infidelity. The confrontation didn't go well. She yelled, calling me paranoid, accusing me of invading her privacy, and even threw in some cruel words about how I wasn't enough anymore. That was the moment I realized how deep her betrayal went. She was willing to lie, cheat, and gamble away everything we had for her own selfish reasons. The woman I thought I loved was a stranger hiding behind a mask of charm and lies. I felt a cold emptiness settle inside me. I had trusted her, believed in us, and she'd been secretly planning her escape with another man and a pile of money I didn't even know she had. After that blow-up, she stormed out of the office, leaving me standing there, feeling more broken than ever. I was furious at her, but more than that, I was devastated. How could she do this? How could she betray me so completely? I started to see everything in a different light. Her bitchy attitude, her lies, her secretive behavior, all of it made sense now. She'd been planning her escape for months, maybe longer. And I was just the fool who didn't see it coming. That night I couldn't sleep again. I kept replaying everything in my head. The betrayal, the lies, the way she looked at me with mock innocence when she was really planning her future with Mark. I felt humiliated, angry, and utterly betrayed. I wondered what I'd done wrong, but deep down I knew this wasn't on me. It was her choice. She chose to cheat, gamble, and lie, and I was left holding the pieces of a shattered marriage. I knew I had to figure out what to do next, but honestly, I was just trying to breathe, trying not to drown in the pain of knowing the woman I loved had been playing me all along. The days that followed were a blur. I couldn't focus on anything except the betrayal that was staring me in the face. Every time I looked at her, Jessica's face would flicker with that fake smile, that fake innocence she always put on when she wanted to spin her lies. But I wasn't buying it anymore. I had seen too much, uncovered too much. The part that stung the most was realizing how much she'd been hiding, her secret stash, her gambling debts, and that inheritance she'd kept from me like it was some kind of prize she was hoarding. It made me question everything about our marriage. Was she ever really honest? Did she ever love me, or was I just a convenience for her until she found something better? I needed to get some clarity, so I started digging through her stuff when she wasn't around. That's when I found the real proof: bank statements, hidden accounts, and more receipts showing she'd been withdrawing large sums of money for months. The inheritance, the gambling, the illicit meetings with Mark, all connected, all pointing to one thing. She was planning her exit, and I was just the fool who was too blind to see it. I felt a mixture of rage and despair. How could she do this? How could she betray me after all the promises, after all the years we spent building what we thought was a life together? I knew I had to confront her again, but this time I wanted to be prepared. I sat her down in the living room one evening, my heart pounding, and laid everything out. I told her I knew about the inheritance, the gambling, and her affair with Mark. Her face went pale for a moment, but then she quickly recovered, her bitchy attitude coming back in full force. "You're delusional," she snapped. "You're just jealous because I found someone better. Maybe I should left you long ago, but I stayed because I loved you." Her words were dripping with sarcasm, but I wasn't buying her act anymore. I told her I'd seen everything: her messages, the bank accounts, the receipts. I told her I knew she'd been lying about her money, about us, about everything. And then she started to lie again, saying I was mistaken, that I was reading too much into things. She told me Mark was just a friend, that she'd never cheated, and that I was paranoid and possessive. But I could see through her bullshit. Her eyes kept darting around, her voice cracking, trying to keep her story straight. I was furious, but I also felt a deep sadness. How had it come to this? How could I have been so blind? I asked her outright if she was planning to leave me for Mark, and she just smirked and said, "If I wanted to leave, I would done it already. You're just insecure like always." That was the moment I realized she wasn't going to take responsibility. She was a manipulator, a liar, a user. She played her part well, but I'd seen enough now. I told her I couldn't stay with someone who lied so effortlessly, who gambled away our future and cheated on me behind my back. I told her I was done, that I wanted a divorce. That's when she got really bitchy, started yelling at me, calling me controlling, insecure, and even a little crazy. She told me I was ruining her life, that I was the one who was making everything so complicated. I didn't care anymore. I'd made up my mind. I was not going to let her manipulate me into staying. I told her I was filing for divorce, that I wanted her out of my house, and that I wanted her to give me back the money she'd stolen from us. Her inheritance, her gambling debts, everything. She scoffed, said I was overreacting, and that I was just jealous because she'd found someone who appreciated her more than I ever did. I looked her in the eye and told her she could take her lies, her money, and her new boyfriend, but she couldn't take my dignity. That night I felt a strange mixture of relief and emptiness. I finally knew the truth, and I was finally taking steps to get out of this mess. It wasn't easy, but I knew I had to do it. I couldn't keep living in her shadow, wondering when she'd leave or how much more she'd take from me. The betrayal cut deep, but I also felt a strange sense of liberation. I was done being her fool. I was going to rebuild, without her, without the lies. And honestly, it hurt like hell, but I knew I'd be better off without someone who could so easily lie, cheat, and gamble away everything we had. The divorce process was a nightmare, but honestly, I felt like I needed to do it just to reclaim some sense of control. Jessica fought me every step of the way, of course. She threw tantrums, called me names, and tried to manipulate the situation. She insisted she was the victim, that I was just jealous and insecure, that her affair was just a fling she'd regret someday. But I wasn't buying any of her bullshit anymore. I had all the proof I needed, and I was determined to get what was fair. She kept insisting she deserved half of everything. Our house, our savings, everything we'd accumulated over the years. She even had the nerve to accuse me of cheating, which was laughable considering I just discovered her affair. Still, she played the victim card hard, crying and saying she was entitled to her fair share because she was married to me for years. I told her she was delusional. I wasn't going to give her a dime more than what was legally ours, and I made damn sure I had all the receipts, bank statements, and everything documented to prove her gambling and infidelity. The judge saw through her pretty quickly. She tried to spin her stories about how she deserved the house because she contributed to it, but the evidence was clear. Her gambling debts, her secret accounts, her planned departure with Mark. I think she realized she wasn't going to win that battle. The settlement was messy, but I managed to keep most of what I earned, and I got sole custody of the house. She was furious, of course, but I felt a strange sense of relief. At least I was finally free from her lies and manipulation. But the aftermath was the real challenge. Jessica didn't go quietly. She made a scene at the courthouse, yelling and demanding more, trying to get me to change my mind. I just sat there, numb, watching her turn into the bitchy, manipulative woman I'd uncovered. I had to block her from my social media, change my phone number, and cut ties with anyone who might have been sympathetic to her. The betrayal ran so deep that I did trust anyone anymore. I felt like I'd been betrayed by the woman I once loved. Even after everything, I still felt the sting of loss. Not just the loss of my marriage, but the loss of trust, the betrayal of my own instincts. I kept asking myself how I missed all the signs, how I didn't see her true colors before she was gone. It's a hard lesson, but I've learned that sometimes people hide their true selves so well that you only see the cracks after it's too late. I also learned that money can change people, turn them into monsters if they're not careful. Now, I've started rebuilding my life from scratch. I've moved into a new place, started therapy, and gotten some legal advice on how to protect myself financially moving forward. I've been cautious about who I trust, and I've learned to listen to that little voice inside that warns me when something's wrong. Honestly, I don't think I'll ever fully get over the betrayal, but I do know I won't let it define me. I want to be better, stronger, and more aware of the red flags from now on. Looking back, I wish I could tell anyone else in this situation to trust your gut. If something feels off, don't ignore it. And never let anyone take advantage of your kindness or trust, because once it's gone, it's damn hard to get back. Jessica's betrayal was a brutal lesson, but it's also made me realize my own strength. I'm still standing, and I plan to stay that way. It's been a few months since the divorce finalized, and honestly, I still wake up some mornings feeling like I'm recovering from a punch to the gut. The worst part isn't even the loss of the marriage. It's the realization of how much I'd been blind to her lies, her schemes, her manipulations. I keep replaying everything, trying to understand how someone I loved could turn out to be so selfish, so ruthless. I keep asking myself if I missed the signs, if I should have seen it coming, but the truth is, she was so good at hiding her true nature. What's been hardest is dealing with the aftermath of her betrayal on a personal level. I trusted her with everything, my heart, my savings, my future, and she threw it all away for a quick thrill. Some extra cash and a new lover. I see now how she played the victim when she was the one who'd been scheming all along. It's infuriating. But I've also learned something valuable. Not everyone is who they seem to be on the surface. People can hide their true motives very well, and sometimes you only see the real them when it's too late. I've started focusing on myself. I got a new job, moved into a different place, and even started dating again, though cautiously. I realize I need to rebuild my trust in people, but I know it's going to take time. I've also been working on my finances, making sure I don't get manipulated again. Jessica's gambling and inheritance schemes taught me a hard lesson about money, how it can be a tool for manipulation or destruction if you're not careful. I've learned to keep my guard up, to watch the small signs that someone might be hiding something. One thing I've come to accept is that she's probably happier now, with Mark or whoever she's with, probably spending that inheritance on some new lifestyle. It stings to think about her living her best life after trashing ours, but I try not to dwell on it. Instead, I focus on what I can control, my own future. I've promised myself I won't let her betrayal define me. Instead, I'll use it as a lesson about trust, about money, about the importance of paying attention to the red flags. I won't lie, sometimes I get angry again, especially when I see her posting on social media, seemingly happy. It's a punch to the gut, knowing she's moved on while I'm still picking up the pieces. But I remind myself that I deserve better than someone who lied and cheated her way out of a life we built together. I've come to realize that true strength isn't just about standing tall. It's about recognizing when to walk away and knowing you're better off without the lies. In the end, I've learned that betrayal cuts deep, but it also reveals who you really are. I've learned to trust my instincts more, to listen to that small voice warning me when something's wrong. And I've learned that revenge isn't about bitterness or anger. It's about reclaiming your dignity and moving forward. Jessica's betrayal was a brutal chapter, but I refuse to let it be the end of my story. It's just the beginning of something better. Looking back now, I realize that the biggest lesson I've taken from all this is about boundaries and self-respect. Jessica's betrayal was a wake-up call, and it forced me to what I want and what I refuse to accept in a relationship. Trust isn't something you give blindly. It's something you earn, and it's fragile. Once that trust is shattered, rebuilding it is almost impossible, especially when the betrayal runs this deep. I also learned that money can be a powerful weapon, either to build or to destroy. Jessica's inheritance, her gambling, her lies about being broke, all of it added fuel to her reckless decisions. I see now how greed and deception can turn someone into a different person entirely. I had to rebuild my financial life from scratch, and I'm still learning how to be smarter and more cautious. Most importantly, I've come to understand that sometimes walking away is the strongest move you can make. I loved her, I truly did, but loving someone doesn't mean you have to stay and be hurt over and over again. Protecting myself and my future became my priority. I realized I was better off alone than with someone who could so easily betray me for her own selfish gains. Now, I focus on healing and moving forward. I've started therapy, not just to process the pain, but to rebuild my confidence and trust in myself. I've learned not to second-guess my instincts. If something feels wrong, it probably is. I've also learned that I deserve honesty and loyalty, and I won't settle for less anymore. My experience with Jessica has shown me how dangerous secrets and lies can be, and how vital it is to be vigilant about the people you let into your life. To anyone reading this who might be going through something similar, trust your gut. Don't ignore the small signs, the little red flags that scream something isn't right. Protect your heart, your money, and your peace of mind, because once it's gone, it's not easy to get back. Betrayal hurts like hell, but it also teaches you your worth. And no matter how shattered you feel right now, There's always a way to pick up the pieces and rebuild stronger than ever. I've learned that life is messy, unpredictable, and sometimes cruel. But it's also a chance to start over, to learn from your mistakes, and to come out on the other side more resilient. Jessica's betrayal was the worst thing that happened to me, but it also became the catalyst for my growth. I'm not perfect, and I still have scars, but I'm moving forward. And honestly, that's all that matters now.